Hi, this is a brief introduction to the topic of mass images, which is the monthly topic on the self-study guides that I offer on my website, www.janrigsby.com. And supporting lectures for this topic can be downloaded from www.pathwork.org. The topic of mass images is interesting because images is a very big concept in pathwork. Images are formed from observations that we make when we are immature. And from our observations made without all the facts and without a knowledge of ourselves or of other people in depth, we come to conclusions. And from those conclusions, we tend to make sweeping generalizations about life, about people, about cause and effect on an emotional or social level. Images, when they're based on false information, false conclusions, and false generalizations, tend to produce results which don't work out. Now, sometimes they do for a while, especially in the situation of the moment, but eventually a false belief system is going to create problems. So when we are looking at problems in our life, sometimes these are based upon a false belief system. Not all of our belief systems are false, but one portion of it may be false. So as an example, when as a child, if we are treated badly by authority, we may conclude that authority is the problem. And so we make a generalization that if life wasn't surrounded by authority figures, if we could find a way to escape authority, life would be pleasurable, life would be more fun, more enjoyable. So we take that in, and it solves the immediate problem. We simply judge authority as the problem, but we may submit for a period of time as a young child. And as we grow up, if we contain this false belief system inside ourselves, then we may almost unconsciously act out on any form of authority that we run into. Now, there's good authority and there's bad authority. So when we make a generalization that authority is a problem, we're not working with what is. We're working with only a distorted image of what is. So as an adult, if we're acting out against authority figures, we may have a problem fitting into jobs. We may have a problem with a relationship where at different times, a different situation, a different partner may need authority to do something. And if we are allergic, in effect, allergic to authority, we're going to be acting out over almost any form of authority. Now that's kind of a quick view of an individual image. Mass images are formed in a very, very similar way for the same reasons. Society has a problem. Society has something that causes disharmony, pain, discomfort. So it looks for the cause. And if it comes to a conclusion about what's causing disharmony, and it's a false conclusion, and socially we make a false generalization, and then we wind up with a false belief system, then it may work in the short term, but in the long term, problems will result. This is all similar to science, which I love. And in science, if you come to a wrong conclusion and you're working with a wrong theory, eventually the data won't support it. Eventually you'll have too many instances that don't fit your theory, and the theory will collapse, and you'll have to reevaluate what new perspective, what new viewpoint, what new idea will fit. This happens a lot specifically in astronomy, because we have so much ability to gather information today. So a lot of our theories from the past have had to be corrected for what we now see as true. One example of mass images would be the idea that the sun revolved around the earth. Now, it fit the observations that we could make at the time, but it also fit our need to be all-important. It was a very egocentric, from a human species perspective, a very egocentric view of the universe. We are the most important thing in the universe. And so as the information began to come in that the sun did not revolve around us, and the planets did not revolve around us. There was resistance to this because we were attached to the idea. We liked the idea that we were the most important thing in the universe. But eventually enough information came in where we couldn't support that theory. And we had to accept that there was another reality, and we had to adjust to fit that. So in that sense, a mass image is very similar to a personal image. We not only think we have a conclusion, a belief system that resolves our problem, we become attached to that. It makes us feel like we are safe, that we are in control, that we can do something for ourselves in the universe, in the world, if we operate with that system. And we find out that that system is flawed, there's a resistance to letting it go. So this is the similarity between individual and mass images. Another example of mass image is superstition. Now, the thing about superstition is it's normally based on things you really can't prove or disprove because it's a matter of how you feel. And when we're dealing with feelings, ideas, and actions, how we act and how other people act upon us, we're not dealing with scientific fact. We're dealing with our interpretation, our beliefs, our feelings, our sense of what is happening, more so than something weighs 1.5 pounds or something weighs 3 grams. So if we have bad luck and we see black cats and we put the two together and we decide, seeing a black cat means bad luck, how do you disprove that? Because there's a place where there could be a grain of truth in it, in that seeing a black cat reduces our self-confidence so that we make mistakes that day. So it was the black cat that brought me bad luck. These can't be proven or disproven. So superstition is an example of a mass image of trying to find an excuse, a reason for bad luck. So another scientific example, which is more recent than Copernicus, is scientific racism. So different societies have different issues with races, with gender, with races, with differences between human beings. So there was a period of time in science where they tried to prove what the difference was between races. And the difficulty was that they were trying to prove that certain races were superior to others, and the people who were trying to prove this were part of the race they were trying to say is superior. So they came up with all kinds of schemes to try to prove that basically white people are superior to any other race. And it's comical now. It wasn't comical when they were doing it. The results were horrific in terms of how they instigated social policy based on this. The idea was that they wanted to know, but they had a hidden agenda. They had a hidden need to be important. And so they saw what they wanted to see. They heard what they wanted to hear. They amassed data based on an already existing theory of I'm superior and I'm going to try to prove why. Okay, so this is an example of having an image, having a need, and reaching out for information and making false conclusions and then winding up with a false belief system. Now there's a negative to a false belief system, and that is it tends to permeate your life. But there's a positive to that too. And the positive is that if you can find in the problems in your life a common denominator that you can track back to a false image, false conclusions, false belief system, and you can resolve that, then you can resolve a number of issues in your life all at once. Now, I'm not trying to minimize the key issue of resolving the image, but when you're looking at a pattern of behavior, you can do a lot of positive good from one action rather than having to go after each individual problem by itself. Now, in terms of resolving an image, the key issue there is to take a look at how it was created in the first place. And to do that, we need to admit that we may have been immature when we created the image. So there's a place where we can't believe we were that foolish or that stupid or that prejudiced or that frightened that we would have invented such a false and misleading story. And we have to see who we were when we came to these conclusions. It takes a bit of humility. Then there's a place where we want there to be a solution, where we're still immature in the sense that we don't want to deal with the complexity of life. We want something simple. And a simple answer will plug that hole and stop that pain and stop the discomfort. And that's what we want. So there is a recognition of the immaturity when we made the false conclusions, recognition of resistance to having solutions to our problems. And then looking around at what is possible. What is the possible truth of the matter? An image is always based upon a grain of truth. In other words, one person may be mean in a family. But in a family, there's tendency for many people to follow the same emotional dynamics, the same personality. So one person may be mean, but it's almost as if it radiates throughout many members of the family. So if those members of the family are male or female, you may come to the conclusion that men are stingy or women are emotionally abusive because you can see a pattern there. But that pattern is part coincidence and part situational in the moment. When we make a generalization and we say men are stingy, women are emotionally abusive, and we carry that into our adult lives, we're not seeing life clearly. We're seeing it through a filter of a false belief system. And that's the importance of looking at images. So I hope you will download the study guide, take a look at it. We have weekly meetings. I'm recording this at the end of the month, so there's only 2 left. But we have weekly meetings where you can share and hear others share about how they perceive the lecture and how they do their own self-study work. And I'll be doing one of these little introductory videos, hopefully, every month. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being interested in Pathway.